People are sick and fed up with this country, telling them what to do.
Hello. Welcome back. And as always, I hope you're doing well. Right, I thought it was about time I'd done a review of an album. And as you know, a couple of weeks ago, I'd done a vinyl that I picked up recently. And I went to Lee Record Exchange and picked up this, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. That was released in 1979. I love this album, but I haven't played it for a long time. It's obviously a soundtrack album to the movie The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, which I have done a review on the channel. I'll put that there. And obviously by the Sex Pistols. Although it's more a compilation. I think the only official Sex Pistols album is Never Mind the Bollocks, it's the Sex Pistols. But before I go on the review I did for this, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle film, I need to make a little correction. In the movie, in that video, I actually said that Sue Catwoman was in the film. It's actually not Sue Catwoman, it's Judy Kroll. Same hairdo and all that lot, but I was mistaken. It's Judy Kroll. And one of my commenters told me that, so thank you very much. So I'll give you another view of the record. Obviously you've got that epic cover with Who Killed Bambi on the back there. Now obviously, as before, it's a gatefold sleeve, but I'm going to have to blur out Judy Kroll because she's young and she's nude with lesson 2. So there you go. Right. So this was released on the 26th of February 1979. So this is 44 years old. I mean, I think I was 12 or 13 when I first heard it. So earlier, I did give the album a good listen. But the track listing was a little bit confusing for me, but I'll get to that in a little while. Now, originally when this version of with the stickers came out, it had an inner sleeve with all the track listings in the right order, because the track listings that are all over the place, it isn't actually right. So what I did, I used a little bit of initiative and made my own. I don't know if you can see that from now, but that's the track listing in the order of this LP. It did kind of throw me a bit because, you know, when you're familiar with an album, you just know what's coming next. Right, so the album was recorded between 1976 and 1978 with the original lineup. We're talking Johnny Rotten, Glenn Matlock, you hardly ever gets a mention in the Rock and Roll Swindle, Steve Jones and Paul Cook. And there was a recording session going on, and the tracks that was in that recording session were Johnny Be Good, Roadrunner, Anarchy in the UK, Substitute, Don't Give Me No Lip, I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, I Want to Be Me, and What You Gonna Do About It, which isn't on here. It was all originally recorded because they was doing rehearsals to keep themselves on, and they was doing the rehearsals, and I think it was done by Dave Goodman in October of 76. But I think it was beefed up a little bit later because McLaren had no new material for this album. And obviously John Rotten had already left the band by the time this was coming out, because obviously this was for the forthcoming movie, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, that was coming out in 1980. This was released in 79. So, but Malcolm discovered this 4-track. So he thought, oh, I'll take Johnny Rotten's voice off there and Glenn Matlock's bass on there and get Steve Jones and Paul Cook to do new guitar and drums on it. I think that's how it went. Right, and also before I start reviewing the tracks of the album, there was 6 singles. I think there's been more since, but I collected them until about 1980 when I started getting into the whole madness and two-tone thing. And the 6 singles were, I think the first one was No One Is Innocent. The B-side was My Way by Sid Vicious, and that was released on the 30th of June 1978. And then the second single was Something Else, the B-side, Friggin' in the Rigging. That was released on February the 23rd, 1979. I got into a lot of trouble. over that with my dad. I really did. Not only was the swastika on the front of Sid Vicious's t-shirt on the front of the cover, but obviously we know Friggin' in the Rigging. My dad actually broke that record. Yeah, he did. But the next single was Silly Thing, and the B-side was Who Killed Bambi, released on the 30th of March 1979. Then the next single I think was Come On Everybody, you know, with a burger on the front. And on the B-side it had God Save the Queen Symphony and What You Gonna Do About It, that isn't on this pressing, whatever reason. On the 5th of October 79, the single with the American Express, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, it was released, and on the B-side was Rock Around the Clock. And then the final single from out was I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, and the B-side was Pistols Propaganda, which was like a movie trailer voiceover, and that was released on the 6th of June 1980. After that, I didn't really buy any more Pistol singles. I really wish I'd have kept them, to be honest with you. Now, in May 1980, there was a single album released of this, but obviously it had a completely different cover, which I absolutely loved. I really did. And on the back it had a load of TV screens with images from the film. But that was a real reduced album. I think all the Johnny Rotten songs were omitted from it. And early releases of that came with the original movie poster, which is kind of awesome. I don't have that no more, and it goes for quite a lot of money now. So anyway, let's go through the tracks and let you know what I think of it, right? But I've got to say, the quieter songs on here, so we're talking about the intro, God Save the Queen with Malcolm McLaren, EMI, and My Way, the intro as it fades in, and You Need Hands, Malcolm McLaren again. It was quite crackly. I mean, the beginning of My Way was really crackly, but I do think the person that owned the album before obviously really liked My Way. But there was no jumps, but it was quite a crackly album. Like I said before, it's quite old. So let's go through the list, and I'll just give you my rough thoughts on it all. Well, obviously it opens up with God Save the Queen Symphony, and this is narrated by Malcolm McLaren at the beginning of the film when he comes out with a gimp mask, and Malcolm tells us all that he invented punk rock. Yeah, of course you did, Malcolm. Now, I think there was a musical version, just the music, and it's done by the London Symphony Orchestra, by the way. So it's a lovely bit of music. But I'm not sure if the instrumental was on the Come On Everybody single. Maybe one of you might be able to let me know in the comments down below. I'm going off memory a lot of this, but there you go. So that was the opening track. Like I said, a bit crackly, but for me, I quite like it. Now, I'm going to just, for people that can't be bothered to sit through the whole review, let me just say, just in case, I bloody love this record. Equally as much as Nevermind the Bollocks, but in a different way. I mean, I know there's a lot of nostalgia tied up to this, but this music, all of it, is in my DNA. It's in my blood. I tell you, I loved it. Right, so track 2. It's Johnny Be Good. And it's a proper demo. I mean, John don't even know the lyrics in it. He really don't. And then it runs straight into... And this is from the 1976, like I said. The guitar and the bass and the drums were beefed up later on. So it sounds kind of cool. But it is, you feel like you're in there with them. And then it runs into Roadrunner. And again, Johnny Rotten don't know the words. So he's shouting to Paul Cook on the drums, you know, what's the words? Bloody brilliant. You are, like I said, you feel like you're in there listening to them doing a demo, basically. Track 4 is Black Arabs. Right, the Black Arabs is a disco medley of Anarchy in the UK, God Save the Queen, Pretty Vacant, and No One Is Innocent. It's a fun song. It is a fun song. Would I like to hear more punk songs done this way? No. I don't like that sort of stuff. But I've got to say, I bloody loved it. I was, yeah. I digress. Anyway, right, so track 5. And the last track on side one on here is Anarchy in the UK from 1976. And this version on here, it's not the one that's on Nevermind the Bollocks, made by EMI. This is loud. This is raw. And I bloody love this version. I mean, obviously, I love the original version as well, but Rotten sounded ferocious on it. I bloody love it. Then we flip over to side 2, and again from that same demo, you got Substitute. You know, we don't need permission for anything. Down, 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 out, down, 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 out. You know, a Who classic, Substitute. And then it goes into Don't Give Me No Lip Child, another raw version from that same demo sessions with all the feedback, you know, and all that. Brilliant. And then Stepping Stone. It's great. For some reason, though, in my head, I thought it was Steve Jones. But it is. It's definitely Johnny Rotten. Track 4, Anarchy in the UK, or Anarchy pour le UK by Jerzimi. And this is like a trio of street musicians, really. You got one on a fiddle, one on an accordion. Actually, the music is really quite swirly and all that lot, while the singer's singing Anarchy in the UK in French. And he had a real raspy sound of it. But apart from the crackles over the record, which didn't bother me, it sounded bloody brilliant. I loved it. Then you've got Belson Was a Gas. Now, this was recorded, I think, the very last concert the Sex Pistols ever done in San Francisco, 14th of January 1979. It wouldn't be allowed nowadays. But it's raw. It's really raw. And then it's followed up by another version of Belson Was a Gas, and this time sung by Ronnie Biggs. And I think this was recorded in Rio de Janeiro when Paul Cook and Steve Jones went out there in late February 1978. And obviously the lyrics and vocals were provided by Ronnie Biggs. But at the beginning of that one, he goes, okay, it's Martin Ballman, apparently. This time for real, when it goes into it, it's very rare you'll get two of the same song next to each other, but it works. So you got the Johnny Rotten one, you know, that ha, 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 kill someone, kill yourself, and all that lot. And then it goes into Ronnie Biggs. Both sounded amazing. Right, then you got this too, the second record. And that opens up with Silly Thing. Oh, you silly... You know, remember the single with the popcorn on the cover? And this is by Paul Cook. Now, I'm sure I've heard a version of Steve Jones singing this somewhere. I don't know where, but... And like I said, this is vague. I was 13, people. I was a kid, so... I don't know. But sounded fantastic. Really enjoyed that. And obviously then the next one of my absolute favourites... My Way, Sid Vicious. It was, like I said, the beginning was very crackly. Obviously, we know My Way by Sid Vicious. It's so iconic. He starts off no, and then it sort of, all of a sudden, just goes into it. It's a proper, it's the nuts. It's one of the highlights of the album for me. Then you got I Wanna Be Me, recorded in 1976. And this track would have fitted on Nevermind the Bollocks perfectly. It's classic Pistols. It just sounds so good. Then you got the next song, Something Else. The song, or should I say the single that got me into trouble with me old man. And this is a proper rock and roll tune. Beefy guitar rhythms. How they got Sid Vicious to sing that well? Because you know Sid was all over the place. He actually sings perfect on it. It fits so well. And it is a proper good rock and roll tune. Loved it. That's followed by Rock Around the Clock, the 10-pole Tudor one. It is mad, I've got to admit. Dave Goodman apparently claimed to play the bass on this, but 10-pole Tudor reckons it was Andy Allen playing the bass. So maybe you might be able to let me know down below. It is a mad one, and it isn't my favourite, but I quite like it with that high pitch, whatever it is, whistle, whatever. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Sorry about my swearing, just came out. Right, that's followed by Lonely Boy, Steve Jones, you know, in the film where he's in the Cambridge Rapist Hotel and he gets it on with a girl and he's singing. It's a pretty good tune. And I do love, like near the end, it's all, oh my darling, can't you see the joy? It's all like, does some sort of like a rumba to it. It's brilliant. That's followed by track 7, the last track on this side of the album, No One Is Innocent, a punk prayer by Ronnie Biggs. The title of this song was originally going to be called Cost Your Driver, a reference to a near fatal beating that they did, Ronnie Biggs done years earlier, because he was on the run-in over there because it was part of the Great Train Robbery. I love that song. I do. And it's not God Save the Queen, it's God Save the... And he names a whole bunch of unsavoury people in it. But it's classic. It's classic. Right. And then we flip over to the final side of the album, and that is Come On Everybody by Sid Vicious. Another great rock and roll anthem by Sid. Great guitars, great riff, but it's really short, like 1 minute and 55 seconds. Really short. So you just get into it and it's going off. But classic, like I said. And I think this is where he's riding around on the motorbike in the great rock and roll Swindle movie. Classic. Then you've got EMI Orchestra with Steve Jones pretty much doing the track EMI that was on Nevermind the Bollocks, but he starts off with Hello There Malcolm, and also again you've got the London Symphony Orchestra in the background, and the music's lovely, but like I said on this it was a little bit crackly. And then one of the highlights of the album for me, the great rock and roll Swindle. This is the Sex Pistols, Temple Tudor and a whole bunch of kids, and it's one of my faves from the album. It's so bloody good. And in the film is where Helen, Malcolm's sort of sidekick in the film, the short woman, is piecing the letters together to make that. There she's in the... I wonder whatever happened to all these big letters. They're laying around somewhere probably. Love that song. It's so good. Even the Temple Tudor. I mean, I'm a fan of Temple Tudor. And not everyone loves what he does on here. But Temple Tudor takes me back to my childhood. Obviously, Who Killed Bambi, which is coming up on here in a little while. Which is weird, because my album, my original one, ended with Friggin' in the Rigging, but we'll get to that in a minute. Rock Around the Clock, and obviously this, the great rock and roll Swindle. But, you know, Swords of 1,000 Men. Do you know, I can't listen to that now without jumping up and down like a kid. Anyway, I digress. So, after the great rock and roll Swindle, is Friggin' in the Rigging, the B-side to Something Else. Do I need to say anything about this? It's sung by Steve Jones. And although the music is actually really good, like you've got like little glockenspiels and whistles and all going on, and it is quite, I mean, obviously it's crude, it's supposed to be, but backward away into it, Steve Jones goes, hold on, give it some bollocks, and then you've got that pistol-sounding beefy guitar. Classic. That's followed by You Need Hands by Malcolm McLaren. You know, the Max Bygrave song. It's not one of my faves, to be honest. But in fairness, the music is quite lovely in it, and McLaren don't do a bad job of singing. And in the film, I did love his T-shirt. He was wearing a tartan outfit, Cash from Chaos T-shirt. I always wanted one of them in blue. Looked great, it did. And then, obviously, you've got the final song on here. Who Killed Bambi by Temple Tudor. And it was written by him and Vivian Westwood, incidentally. And again, I love this. As soon as you hear that opening piece of music, you just think, what? It's bloody brilliant. And it takes me straight back to when I was a kid, full of excitement. It's a crazy song, but it's a gem. Now, there is actually footage on YouTube, and you can actually see Who Killed Bambi, because that was going to be the original title of the film, Who Killed Bambi, but they changed it to A Great Rock and Roll Swindle. You can actually see certain deleted scenes on YouTube. They weren't on here. But my original album had Friggin' in the Rigging at the end, and it also had the track What You Gonna Do About It. So I don't know if this one is the original album, because they was both released in 1979. Again, let me know in the comments. Now, if I do actually see the one that ends in Friggin' in the Rigging, because it did throw me, because you know when you know an album that well, you know what's coming next, etc., etc. It did kind of throw me, but did I love it? Oh, yes. I really loved it. I'm so glad to own it. I really am. It's a classic. For me, it's an absolute classic. Now, Steve Jones has said there was a lot of slop on the Swindle. Well, sorry, Steve, I disagree. This album is the nuts. It really is. Now, I do realise I have a lot of nostalgia tied up to this because I was just a kid, 12, maybe 13 years old. But after all these years, I really did enjoy playing this record. Now, I think Julian Temple really needs to go back to this and release this on Blu-ray with the deleted scenes, the really rare trailer, possibly with the other documentary about the Pistols that he put out, The Filth and the Fury, and maybe Nevermind the Bulbuls, you know, the Pistols went up. There was a load of firemen on strike up north, and the Pistols went up there and put on a show for the kids and the parents. That would make a great extra too. But Arrow or 88 Films or someone like that, get in touch with Julian Temple, because I don't think he's interested, but he's obviously got all his stuff somewhere. The deleted scenes, that there was some of the cartoon stuff that was in The Filth and the Fury that wasn't in The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. So there you go. Did I love it? Yes. I'm going to keep that in there as well. But if I do see the other album in the record shops when I'm out and about, I possibly would pick it up. I really would. Would I pick the single album up again? I do really like the cover, but to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't. I might get tempted though if I saw it in the wild. Right, so there you go. That's my review of the Sex Pistols, or the compilation album to the soundtrack of The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. If you want to see my review of The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, you can see that there. And if you want to see my review, it's quite an old one now, of Never Mind the Bollocks is the Sex Pistols, I'll put that one there. Much love, guys. Thanks for watching. If you like this sort of thing, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Rambles. It don't cost you any money, and it really helps this fella out. Have yourselves an amazing week. I'll be back with another ramble real soon. Take care, people.